Airport staff mock man in Harris shirt, then discover he owns the airline. How will this story escalate? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The buzz of chatter and the rhythmic rolling of luggage wheels filled the air of Terminal 5 at Kennedy International Airport. Amid the usual hustle and bustle, a middle-aged man stood out, not because of his demeanor but because of his bold fashion choice. His shirt, a patriotic display of stars and stripes, bore the name Harris in bold letters across the back. Paired with his baseball cap and sunglasses, he exuded a casual, almost unassuming air. His name was Mark Harris. But to the staff working at the airport that day, he was just another passenger, a slightly eccentric one at that. Mark approached the security checkpoint, his boarding pass and ID in hand. The TSA agent at the counter, a young woman named Alicia, gave him a once-over, her lips curling into a smirk. "Nice shirt," she said sarcastically, glancing at his ID before handing it back. Mark smiled politely, not letting the comment faze him. "Thank you," he replied, his tone warm and unassuming. Alicia turned to her colleague, whispering loud enough for Mark to hear. "Who does this guy think he is? A walking 4th of July parade?" The two agents chuckled, their laughter cutting through the hum of the terminal. Mark pretended not to notice, but the sharpness of their words stung. He stepped forward, placing his belongings into the plastic bins for screening. As he walked through the metal detector, another TSA agent, a burly man named Todd, gestured for him to stop. "Sir, we're going to need to do a random pat-down," he said, his tone laced with barely concealed amusement. Mark nodded, extending his arms without protest. "Go ahead," he said calmly. Todd conducted the pat-down with exaggerated thoroughness, muttering under his breath, "Mr. Patriot here must have something to hide." Alicia joined in, holding up Mark's shirt as she inspected his belongings. "I mean, seriously, who wears something like this to an airport? Trying to make a statement or something?" Mark remained silent, enduring their jabs with quiet dignity. Inside, though, he couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and sadness. He had chosen the shirt simply because it was comfortable and meaningful to him, not as a statement or a provocation. But the staff's behavior made it clear that they had already judged him. As Mark moved past security, he found himself in the airport's bustling food court. He grabbed a coffee and settled into a seat near the gate, his thoughts swirling. He had seen countless people treated with indifference, or worse, by those in positions of authority. And while he had always considered himself someone who could brush off such treatment, today's experience had struck a nerve. Across the terminal, Alicia and Todd stood by the security checkpoint, still laughing about their encounter with Mr. Harris' shirt. They didn't realize, of course, that the man they had mocked was not just any passenger. Mark Harris was the majority shareholder and chairman of the very airline they worked with every day. Mark had built his career from the ground up, starting as a flight attendant in his early 20s. Over the years, his dedication, innovation, and empathy had propelled him to the top of the aviation industry. But despite his success, he had never lost touch with his roots. He frequently traveled incognito, using his trips to observe firsthand how his airline and its partners treated their passengers. And today, what he had observed troubled him deeply. The flight to Dallas was announced over the intercom, and passengers began lining up to board. Mark took his place in the priority line, his boarding pass in hand. As he approached the gate, he noticed Alicia and Todd standing nearby, chatting with another agent. Their laughter stopped abruptly when they spotted him. "Looks like Mr. Harris' shirt made it through," Todd muttered. Alicia smirked. "Yeah, let's see how long it takes him to start complaining about something." Mark handed his boarding pass to the gate agent, who scanned it and gestured him forward. As he walked down the jet bridge, he couldn't help but reflect on the disparity between the airline's values and the behavior of its staff. Kindness and respect had always been at the core of the company's mission, yet today he had witnessed the exact opposite. The flight itself was uneventful, but Mark spent most of it deep in thought. He had always believed in leading by example and fostering a culture of empathy within his organization. But clearly there were cracks in the system, cracks that needed to be addressed. When the plane landed in Dallas, Mark made his way to the airline's corporate headquarters, located just a short drive from the airport. As he entered the sleek, modern building, he was greeted by Sarah, his executive assistant. "Welcome back, Mr. Harris," she said warmly. "How was your trip?" Mark offered a small smile. "Eye-opening," he replied. "Can you gather the leadership team for a meeting? There's something important I need to address." Sarah nodded, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Within an hour, the airline's top executives were assembled in the conference room, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Mark stood at the head of the table, his gaze steady as he began to speak. "Today, I experienced something that I never thought I would witness in one of our partner airports," he said. "I was treated with disrespect, mockery, and a complete lack of professionalism, simply because of what I was wearing." The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. "This isn't just about me," Mark continued. "It's about every passenger who walks through our doors. They deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are or what they look like. And if we're not living up to that standard, we're failing, not just as a company but as people." Mark's words sparked a wave of introspection and action within the organization. He initiated a company-wide training program focused on empathy, diversity, and customer service, ensuring that every employee, from the front lines to the executive suite, understood the importance of treating others with kindness. He also introduced a new initiative called Walk in Their Shoes, which required executives to spend time working alongside frontline staff, experiencing the challenges and realities of their roles. The goal was to bridge the gap between leadership and operations, fostering a culture of understanding and collaboration. Meanwhile, Alicia and Todd continued their usual routine at the airport, unaware of the storm brewing behind the scenes. That is, until a memo arrived from their supervisor, instructing all staff to attend a mandatory training session on professional conduct and customer service. "What's this about?" Todd grumbled as he scanned the email. "Probably another boring lecture," Alicia replied, rolling her eyes. "I mean, it's not like we did anything wrong." But when they arrived at the training session, they were met with an unexpected surprise. Standing at the front of the room, addressing the group with calm authority, was Mark Harris himself. Alicia's jaw dropped, and Todd's face turned ashen as they recognized the man in the Harris shirt, the very passenger they had mocked. Mark began the session by sharing his story, recounting the experience at the security checkpoint without naming names. His tone was measured but firm, his words carrying a weight that resonated with everyone in the room. "Every passenger who walks through those doors is putting their trust in us," he said. "They trust us to get them where they need to go, safely and comfortably. And that trust starts with respect." As he spoke, Alicia and Todd exchanged nervous glances, the realization of their behavior sinking in. They had never imagined that the man they had ridiculed was someone with the power to change their careers, or end them. After the session, Mark approached Alicia and Todd, his expression unreadable. "I hope today's training was helpful," he said. "Yes, sir," Alicia stammered, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "It won't happen again?" Mark nodded, his gaze steady. "I trust it won't. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about me, it's about the people we serve." After the training session, word spread quickly among the airport staff that the man in the Harris shirt wasn't just any passenger but Mark Harris, the chairman of the airline. The revelation sent shockwaves through the team, particularly for Alicia and Todd, who spent the rest of the day trying to process what had happened. "He was so calm," Todd muttered as they walked back to their station. "I mean, he could have fired us on the spot." Alicia nodded, her face still pale. "Yeah, but instead he stood there and gave us a chance to learn from it. Makes me feel even worse." Their conversation was interrupted by their supervisor, who approached them with a stern expression. "Alicia, Todd," she said. "Mr. Harris asked me to personally ensure that you both complete a follow-up mentorship program. You'll be shadowing our senior customer service representatives for the next month." Todd groaned, but Alicia nodded quickly. "Understood," she said. "We'll do whatever it takes." The supervisor softened slightly. "Look, you two are good workers. But this is a wake-up call. Treat every passenger with respect, because you never know who they might be." As the mentorship program began, Alicia and Todd were paired with veteran customer service representatives who had spent decades working in the airline industry. Their mentors shared stories of difficult passengers, heartwarming moments, and the lessons they had learned about patience and empathy. One day, Alicia was shadowing an agent named Linda, who was assisting an elderly couple with their boarding passes. The couple seemed confused by the process, and Alicia watched as Linda patiently explained each step, her voice gentle and reassuring. "Thank you so much," the elderly woman said, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "You've been so kind." As the couple walked away, Alicia turned to Linda, a new sense of respect in her voice. "How do you stay so calm and kind even when things get stressful?" Linda smiled. "It's simple," she said. "I treat every passenger the way I'd want someone to treat my family. That's what this job is really about, helping people no matter who they are." The words stuck with Alicia, and over the next few weeks she began to see her role in a new light. For the first time, she felt proud of the work she was doing, not just as a job but as a way to make a difference in people's lives. Meanwhile, Mark Harris continued his efforts to transform the company's culture. He personally visited airports across the country, meeting with staff and listening to their concerns. He implemented new policies to support employees, including better training, mental health resources, and opportunities for career advancement. But Mark didn't stop there. He also launched a program called Voices of the Sky, which encouraged passengers to share their feedback and experiences with the airline. The program was designed to create a direct line of communication between the company and its customers, ensuring that every voice was heard. One day, Mark received an email from a frequent flyer who had witnessed the incident at the security checkpoint. The passenger described how Mark had handled the situation with grace and humility, setting an example for everyone around him. "You turned a moment of disrespect into an opportunity for growth," the email read. "It's leaders like you who restore my faith in the airline industry." Mark smiled as he read the message, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He had always believed that leadership was about more than making decisions. It was about setting an example and inspiring others to do the same. As the mentorship program came to an end, Alicia and Todd were called into their supervisor's office. They sat nervously, unsure of what to expect. "I've been getting positive reports from your mentors," the supervisor said, her tone firm but fair. "They've noticed a real change in your attitude and approach. But I want to hear it from you. What have you learned?" Todd cleared his throat, his usual bravado replaced with humility. "I've learned that this job isn't just about enforcing rules," he said. "It's about helping people and treating them with respect. I know I haven't always done that, but I'm committed to doing better." Alicia nodded in agreement. "I've realized how much of an impact we have on people's experiences," she said. "I used to take this job for granted, but now I see it as an opportunity to make someone's day better." The supervisor studied them for a moment before nodding. "Good," she said. "I'm glad to hear that. But remember, actions speak louder than words. Keep proving yourselves and you'll earn back the trust you've lost." A month later, Mark returned to the airport for another unannounced visit. This time he was dressed even more casually, wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. As he approached the security checkpoint, he spotted Alicia and Todd working diligently, their interactions with passengers noticeably more respectful and professional. When it was Mark's turn to go through, Alicia greeted him with a genuine smile. "Good afternoon, sir," she said. "Hope you're having a great day." Mark handed her his ID and boarding pass, nodding politely. "Thank you," he said. "I am." As he passed through the metal detector, Todd stepped forward to assist with his belongings. "Everything looks good here, sir," Todd said, his tone courteous. "Safe travels." Mark paused, turning to face them both. "Thank you," he said. "You're doing great work." Alicia and Todd exchanged a glance, realizing that Mark had recognized them. But instead of feeling nervous, they felt proud. They had worked hard to earn his approval, and hearing those words from him felt like validation. The experience had left a lasting impact on Alicia and Todd, but it had also sparked a broader cultural shift within the airport staff. Their story became a cautionary tale, reminding everyone of the importance of treating every passenger with respect. As for Mark, he continued to lead the airline with the same humility and integrity that had defined his career. He knew that his work was never truly done, but he took comfort in knowing that he was making a difference. One person, one interaction, one flight at a time. Years later, as he reflected on the incident at the security checkpoint, Mark realized that it had been a turning point, not just for Alicia and Todd, but for the entire organization. It was a reminder that even small moments of disrespect could have ripple effects, and that true leadership meant addressing those moments with compassion and resolve. And so, the man in the Harris shirt walked forward, his vision for a better airline, and a better world, guiding him every step of the way. A few weeks after Mark's visit to the airport, Alicia and Todd found themselves reflecting on everything that had happened. The once unremarkable routine of their daily jobs now carried new meaning, and they often discussed the unexpected lessons they had learned from the man in the Harris shirt. "It's crazy how he didn't call us out right then and there," Todd said one afternoon as they stood by the security checkpoint during a quiet moment. Alicia nodded, adjusting a tray on the conveyor belt. "Yeah, if it were me I probably would've. But instead he turned it into a chance for us to learn. That's what stuck with me the most. It wasn't about punishing us, it was about helping us see what we were doing wrong." Their supervisor, overhearing the conversation, walked over. "Funny you should say that," she said with a small smile. "I just got word from corporate. Mr. Harris has personally invited you both to join the airline's new leadership development program." Todd blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, what?" "That's right," the supervisor replied. "He sees potential in you both and he wants to help you grow. This program is a big deal. It's not something you want to pass up." The news was met with a mix of surprise and gratitude. Alicia and Todd couldn't believe that the man they had mocked not long ago now saw them as capable of leadership. It felt like both an opportunity and a responsibility, one they were determined to honor. When the program began, Alicia and Todd found themselves in a room full of airline employees from across the country. There were gate agents, flight attendants, baggage handlers, and even a few mechanics, all gathered with the shared goal of becoming better at what they did. The program focused on empathy, communication, and leadership skills, challenging everyone to think beyond their immediate roles and see the bigger picture. Mark Harris himself led one of the sessions. Standing at the front of the room, he spoke with the same calm authority that had left such an impression on Alicia and Todd. His words carried weight not because of his position but because of his authenticity. "Leadership," Mark said, "isn't about telling people what to do. It's about showing them how it's done. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels respected and valued, whether they're a passenger, an employee, or a colleague." As he continued, Alicia and Todd couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The man they had once dismissed as an eccentric passenger was now someone they deeply admired. His ability to inspire others, to lead with humility and purpose, was something they hoped to emulate in their own lives. The program wasn't easy. It pushed them out of their comfort zones, forcing them to confront their biases and rethink how they approached their work. But it also gave them a renewed sense of pride in what they did. They began to see their roles not just as jobs, but as opportunities to make a positive impact on others. By the end of the program, Alicia and Todd felt like completely different people. They returned to their jobs with a newfound sense of purpose, eager to apply what they had learned. Their interactions with passengers became warmer, more thoughtful, and it didn't take long for their efforts to be noticed. One afternoon, Alicia was helping an elderly passenger who seemed confused about the boarding process. Instead of rushing through the interaction, she took the time to walk the woman through each step, offering reassurance along the way. The gratitude in the passenger's eyes was enough to remind Alicia why she loved her job. Todd, meanwhile, encountered a frustrated traveler who had just missed his flight. In the past, Todd might have dismissed the man's complaints or grown defensive. But now, he listened patiently, empathized with the traveler's situation, and worked to find a solution. By the end of their conversation, the man's anger had given way to appreciation. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. Passengers began leaving glowing reviews about Alicia and Todd, praising their kindness and professionalism. Their supervisor, impressed by the transformation, recommended them for promotions. When the news reached Mark Harris, he couldn't help but smile. He had taken a chance on Alicia and Todd, and they had risen to the occasion. At the airline's annual employee recognition ceremony, Mark took the stage to address the crowd. He spoke about the values that define the company: integrity, respect, and a commitment to excellence, and how those values were brought to life by the people who worked there. "Today," Mark said, "I want to recognize two individuals who have gone above and beyond to embody these values. Their journey reminds us all that it's never too late to grow, to learn, and to make a difference." As he called Alicia and Todd to the stage, the room erupted into applause. The two stood side by side, their faces a mix of pride and humility. It was a moment they would never forget, a testament to how far they had come and how much further they could go. After the ceremony, Alicia and Todd found themselves surrounded by colleagues congratulating them on their achievements. But the most meaningful interaction came when Mark approached them, a warm smile on his face. "You've both come a long way," he said. "I'm proud of you." "Thank you, sir," Alicia replied, her voice steady but full of emotion. "We couldn't have done it without you." Mark shook his head. "You had it in you all along. I just helped you see it." As the evening went on, Alicia and Todd reflected on everything they had learned over the past few months. Their journey had been challenging, but it had also been deeply rewarding. They had discovered not only what it meant to be better employees but also what it meant to be better people. In the weeks and months that followed, Alicia and Todd continued to thrive in their roles, setting an example for their colleagues and earning the respect of passengers and staff alike. Their story became a reminder that even small moments of kindness and understanding could have a ripple effect, inspiring others to do the same. As for Mark, he remained as committed as ever to leading with integrity and purpose. He knew that true leadership wasn't about power or authority, it was about making a difference, one person, one interaction, and one decision at a time. When he thought back to that day at the airport, he didn't dwell on the disrespect he had faced. Instead, he focused on what had come from it: a chance to make things better not just for himself but for everyone involved. And so, the man in the Harris shirt continued to walk through airports and board flights, always watching, always learning, and always leading by example. In the weeks following the recognition ceremony, Alicia and Todd became unofficial ambassadors of a transformed culture at the airport. They weren't just doing their jobs, they were living proof of how empathy and humility could change not only a workplace but lives. Their supervisor, who had once seen them as capable but complacent, began assigning them to mentor new hires. "Who better to show them the ropes than the two of you?" she said one day with a grin. "You know better than anyone how important it is to treat every passenger with dignity." At first, Alicia and Todd hesitated. They remembered how unmotivated they'd been when they first started and worried about whether they could inspire the next generation of employees. But when they met their ments, a group of eager yet nervous recruits, they realized how much they had to offer. Todd, standing in front of the group during one of their first sessions, decided to start with honesty. "Listen," he said, "I wasn't the best at this job when I started. I made mistakes, big ones. But someone gave me the chance to learn and grow, and now I get to do the same for you." Alicia chimed in, her voice calm but firm. "The biggest lesson we can teach you is this: treat every passenger like they're the most important person in the room. Because to them their journey is important. And how you treat them matters more than you might think." The recruits nodded, their expressions thoughtful. Over the weeks that followed, Alicia and Todd took them through hands-on training, sharing not only technical skills but also the soft skills that had taken them so long to learn. They showed the new hires how to de-escalate tense situations, how to make passengers feel valued, and most importantly, how to take pride in their work. One day, as Alicia was demonstrating how to assist passengers with special needs, a recruit asked, "What made you change? What made you care so much about this job?" Alicia paused, thinking back to the day she had met Mark Harris at the security checkpoint. "It was a lesson I learned the hard way," she admitted. "I realized that every interaction I have could make or break someone's experience. And I never want to be the reason someone has a bad day." As their reputations grew, so did the responsibilities placed on Alicia and Todd. Their airport began rolling out new customer service initiatives inspired by Mark's leadership training program, and Alicia and Todd were tapped to lead many of them. One of the initiatives involved setting up feedback stations where passengers could share their experiences in real time. At first, the feedback stations were met with skepticism by the staff. "Do we really want to open ourselves up to more complaints?" one employee muttered during a team meeting. But Todd stepped in, his voice steady and confident. "It's not about complaints, it's about learning. Every piece of feedback, good or bad, is a chance to improve. And if we listen, we'll get better." The feedback stations quickly became a success. Passengers appreciated the chance to voice their opinions, and the staff began seeing the value in real-time insights. Alicia and Todd monitored the feedback closely, using it to identify patterns and address recurring issues. Over time, the airport saw noticeable improvements in passenger satisfaction, and the initiative was adopted at other airports across the airline's network. One day, as Mark Harris was reviewing reports from the feedback stations, a particular comment caught his eye. It was from a passenger who had been traveling with a young child and had faced several challenges during their journey. The passenger described how Alicia had gone above and beyond to help, from assisting with luggage to calming the child during a stressful moment. She turned what could have been a nightmare into a pleasant experience, the comment read. "I've never felt so cared for while traveling. Alicia deserves all the recognition in the world." Mark smiled as he read the words, feeling a sense of pride not only in Alicia but in the culture he had worked so hard to build. He decided it was time to pay another visit to the airport. When Mark arrived, he didn't announce his presence. Instead, he watched from a distance as Alicia and Todd worked. He saw Alicia comforting a nervous first-time flyer, her voice calm and reassuring. He saw Todd stepping in to assist an elderly passenger whose cane had fallen, his movements quick but gentle. After a while, Mark approached them, his presence catching them by surprise. "Mr. Harris," Todd exclaimed, standing a little straighter. "Good to see you both," Mark said, his tone warm but professional. "I've been hearing great things about the work you're doing." Alicia smiled, feeling both proud and humbled. "Thank you, sir. We've just been trying to do what you taught us, to lead by example." Mark nodded. "And you're doing just that. But I have one more challenge for you." The two exchanged a curious glance. "What is it?" Todd asked. Mark's smile widened. "How would you feel about joining our corporate team as part of the leadership development program? We're looking for people who can help us bring these changes to airports across the country." Alicia and Todd were stunned. The idea of leaving the security checkpoint to work at the corporate level had never crossed their minds. But as they thought about everything they had learned and how far they had come, they realized it was an opportunity they couldn't pass up. In the months that followed, Alicia and Todd transitioned to their new roles, traveling to different airports to share their story and help implement the programs they had helped shape. They became advocates for the power of empathy and leadership, inspiring countless others to embrace the values that had transformed their own lives. Mark Harris continued to mentor them, offering guidance and support as they navigated their new responsibilities. He often reminded them that their journey wasn't just about professional growth, it was about making a difference. "You've both shown that change is possible," Mark told them during one of their meetings. "And now you have the chance to help others see that too." Alicia and Todd took those words to heart, dedicating themselves to their mission with the same determination that had carried them through their journey. They knew that they were part of something bigger than themselves, a movement to make the airline industry a kinder, more compassionate place. And as they looked back on the day they had first met Mark Harris, they couldn't help but feel grateful. What had started as a moment of shame had turned into an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to lead. It was a reminder that even the smallest interactions could have the greatest impact, and that it was never too late to become the best version of yourself. Months into their new roles, Alicia and Todd became familiar faces within the corporate training and development team. Their story of growth and redemption became a cornerstone of the airline's new employee onboarding program. Mark Harris even had their journey highlighted in a short documentary video shown to new hires, emphasizing the importance of empathy, humility, and professionalism in every role. One day, Alicia and Todd were invited to speak at a company-wide leadership summit. The event, held at the airline's sprawling headquarters, brought together managers and employees from across the country. Alicia, standing in front of hundreds of attendees, took a deep breath before speaking. "When I started this job, I didn't see the people behind the tickets and IDs," she admitted, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I saw passengers as tasks to complete, not individuals with their own stories. But one man changed that for me, not by yelling or scolding but by showing me what true leadership looks like." Todd followed, his tone both candid and reflective. "I used to think my job was just about enforcing rules. But now I know it's about creating a positive experience for every single person who walks through our doors. That shift in perspective didn't just make me a better employee, it made me a better person." Their words were met with a standing ovation, the audience moved by their authenticity and the tangible proof of the airline's cultural transformation. Mark, sitting in the front row, felt a swell of pride. He had always believed in the power of second chances, and Alicia and Todd were living examples of what could happen when people were given the opportunity to grow. As Alicia and Todd's influence grew, so did their responsibilities. They were soon tasked with leading a pilot program aimed at improving customer service across the airline's busiest hubs. The program involved intensive workshops, hands-on training, and real-time feedback sessions with staff. One day, while visiting one of the hubs, Alicia encountered a security officer who reminded her of her younger self, brash, dismissive, and quick to judge. Instead of reprimanding him, she pulled him aside for a conversation. "I know this job can be frustrating," she said, her tone empathetic. "But remember, every interaction you have is a chance to make someone's day better, or worse. The choice is yours." The officer looked at her, surprised by her honesty. "Did you always think this way?" he asked. Alicia shook her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "Not at all. It took me a long time to learn. But I'm here to help you figure it out sooner." Her words struck a chord, and over the next few weeks, the officer began to change. His demeanor softened, his interactions with passengers grew warmer, and he even started mentoring his colleagues. Alicia watched with a sense of fulfillment, knowing she had paid forward the lessons Mark had taught her. Meanwhile, Todd spearheaded an initiative to address passenger complaints more effectively. He introduced a system that allowed passengers to track the status of their feedback, ensuring transparency and accountability. The initiative was an immediate success, earning praise from both passengers and staff. But Todd's proudest moment came when he received an email from a passenger who had been helped by one of the employees he had trained. The email described how the employee had gone above and beyond to assist a family traveling with a child who had special needs. "I've flown with dozens of airlines," the email read, "but I've never felt as cared for as I did on your flight. Please thank the staff member who helped us, and whoever trained them to be so compassionate." Todd shared the email with Mark, who responded with a single line, "This is why we do what we do." Over time, Alicia and Todd became more than employees. They became symbols of the airline's commitment to growth, compassion, and excellence. Their work didn't just improve customer satisfaction. It fostered a sense of pride among the staff. Employees began to see their roles as more than just jobs. They saw them as opportunities to make a difference. For Mark, watching Alicia and Todd thrive was a constant reminder of why he had taken a chance on them in the first place. He often thought back to that day at the security checkpoint, when they had mocked him without knowing who he was. It would have been easy to fire them, to write them off as unworthy of their roles. But instead, he had chosen to lead with compassion, and that choice had paid off in ways he could never have imagined. One evening, during a quiet moment in his office, Mark reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this point. He thought about the passengers who had been impacted by Alicia and Todd's work, the employees who had been inspired by their story, and the culture of respect and empathy that now defined the airline. Mark knew there was still work to be done. The airline industry was constantly evolving, and challenges would always arise. But as long as there were people like Alicia and Todd leading the way, he was confident they could handle whatever came their way. And so, the man in the Harris shirt continued to walk through airports and board flights, not as a CEO demanding recognition, but as a leader quietly shaping the future. One conversation, one interaction, and one act of kindness at a time.